Drake's legal battle just shifted from cloudy skies to what looks like a full-on storm. And tonight we're walking through exactly why so many watchers believe the judge's latest signals put him on the defensive. Remember, we're dealing with court filings, statements, and public reporting. Everything here is alleged until a court rules, and everyone mentioned is entitled to the presumption of innocence. That said, the tone of the courtroom has changed, and if you blinked, you might have missed the moment where optimism turned into damage control. Before we dive deep, a quick note. If you appreciate clear, fast, and fair celebrity coverage, tap subscribe to Scandal News, turn on notifications, and drop a comment with your take. Your engagement helps this show reach more viewers who want the facts without the fluff. Now, let's lay out the big picture. A lawsuit is not just about what you did or didn't do, it's about evidence, procedure, deadlines, and credibility. Judges rarely tip their hands, but they do ask pointed questions. And those questions can reveal where the pressure points are. In the most recent developments, the questions getting the most attention are the ones that challenge the strength of the defense narrative and the reliability of certain explanations. That's where momentum quietly switched. Here's what has people talking. First, there's the court's focus on who bears the burden and whether key claims are supported with more than vibes. If the judge thinks a claim is thin, they'll say so. If they think a defense is paper thin, they'll say that too, often by asking the kind of surgical question that cuts straight through PR and lands on process. Observers picked up on the judge pressing for clarity, timelines, and supporting documentation. That doesn't mean Drake has no path to victory. It means that path may be narrower, steeper, and costlier than it looked a few weeks ago. Second, the schedule matters. Courts do not love delay without a solid legal reason. If deadlines are slipping or material is incomplete, a judge can view that as a sign of weakness or strategic stalling. That perception, fair or not, can influence how strictly the court enforces rules, which filings get traction, and how settlement talks start to sound behind the scenes. Third, credibility is currency. High-profile defendants bring celebrity wattage, but judges care about paper and precedent. If one side strings together consistent documentation while the other side offers shifting narratives, the judge will usually gravitate to the paper trail. Right now, a lot of energy is going into whether claims line up with evidence and whether those connections are tight enough to survive serious scrutiny. Let's talk possible outcomes. One route is a negotiated settlement, confidential, strategic, and often framed as a business decision, not an admission. Another route is pretrial motions that trim the case, tossing out weaker claims and leaving a smaller, sharper dispute. The high-risk route is a full trial, which is slow, expensive, and unpredictable, especially with a global name like Drake. When the stakes are brand deals, tour schedules, streaming releases, and long-term public trust, the room for error shrinks to almost nothing. Even if the dollar amount seems manageable, the reputational cost can compound over time. Headlines today become search results tomorrow, which become the opening paragraph of every story next year. That is why a single tough comment from a judge can echo across the industry. Let's unpack what the judge signaled a likely loss actually means in the language of the courtroom. It could mean the court is skeptical about a specific defense theory. It could mean the judge telegraphed that a pending motion is unlikely to go Drake's way. It could mean the court sees enough in the record to let damaging claims move forward. None of that is a final ruling. But in litigation, early wins often steer the ship. Teams watch those wins and adjust tactics, immediately tightening affidavits, adding expert opinions, or pivoting to a settlement posture. And yes, the public statements change too. You'll hear more measured phrases, fewer absolute claims, and more language about letting the process play out. If you're a fan, you might be wondering what this means for music. Artists plan releases around legal calendars more than they admit. A looming hearing can freeze a rollout, mute a feature, or force a lyric rework to avoid future exhibits popping up out of context. If the court keeps turning up the heat, expect a conservative release strategy, fewer surprises, more controlled messaging, and carefully timed interviews that stick to safe lanes. From a business perspective, partners hate uncertainty. Brands, festivals, and platforms don't want to be caught mid-campaign if a damaging order drops. That means any hint of judicial disapproval can ripple through negotiations. You'll see contracts with tighter morality clauses, more outs, and stricter approval rights. That's the quiet cost of litigation. It taxes everything around the artist, not just the artist's wallet. Let's zoom in on legal strategy. A strong defense does three things at once. It challenges jurisdiction or standing where possible. It moves to exclude weak or prejudicial material. And it flips the narrative by producing documentation that tells a clearer story than the allegations. If any of those pillars wobble, the judge notices, and when the judge notices, motion practice gets tougher, extensions get shorter, discovery gets stricter, and the benefit of the doubt starts to fade. Here's an underrated factor: tone. Courts expect professionalism and precision. Celebrity teams sometimes write for the audience outside the courthouse. Judges read for the record. If the filings sound like press releases instead of legal analysis, that disconnect can quietly damage credibility. Winning in court is about meeting the court where it lives: rules, citations, exhibits, and logic. Let's talk precedent. In other celebrity cases, we've seen a pattern. When a judge signals skepticism early, the side in the hot seat either cleans up the case quickly or makes a deal. Dragging it out may thrill the timeline, but the longer the fight, the more discovery. The more depositions, the more chances for an unforced error to leak into the public. Privacy is a myth once litigation starts moving. Texts become exhibits. Emails become timelines. Jokes become interpretations. A single screenshot can dominate a week of headlines and redefine a brand story. So what are the pressure points for Drake's team right now? First, aligning public messaging with the legal realities. Second, ensuring every witness and every document supports the same story. Third, anticipating the judge's pain points and addressing them proactively instead of reacting. That last piece is crucial. Courts reward parties who fix issues before being told to. If the judge is already signaling concern, the smart move is to over-deliver on clarity and completeness. Let's walk through the timeline pressure. Every hearing date is a moment of truth. If a motion to dismiss is on the calendar and the judge telegraphs that it's weak, the defense has days, not weeks, to reinforce the argument or pivot. If the issue is discovery, compliance becomes an emergency. Produce more, organize better, cut the noise. Simple beats, clever when the court is losing patience. From the outside, it might look like a sudden collapse. From the inside, it's just math. The cost of continuing versus the cost of concluding. Labels, agents, and partners run the numbers. They look at risk exposure, insurance, lost opportunities, and the sheer energy drain of continuing the fight. At a certain point, a settlement that was unthinkable yesterday becomes sensible today. That doesn't mean the defense believes it would lose at trial. It means the battle itself is the loss. Fans will ask whether this is fair. Litigation is not about fairness in the everyday sense. It's about the rules we all agreed to play by. If the judge believes the rules weren't followed, that has consequences regardless of how famous you are. That is why the courtroom is the one stage where celebrity weighs less than paperwork. Speaking of paperwork, evidence wins cases. Receipts matter. Dates matter. Chain of custody matters. If there's a gap, the other side will drive a truck through it. If there's inconsistency, it will be quoted back with a highlighter. A disciplined narrative beats a dramatic one 9 times out of 10. Here's the million-dollar question. What happens to Drake's public image if the court issues an adverse ruling in the near term? First, the headlines will be brutal because headlines reward finality. Second, social media will split into camps, and the loudest voices will try to define the story within hours. Third, algorithmic memory will lock in the framing, making it harder to pivot later. Crisis communications teams plan for that exact window, scripting short.com statements that acknowledge the process, avoid relitigating the facts, and set expectations for the next step. What about the best-case scenario? The defense shores up the record, answers the judge's concerns, and wins a key motion that resets momentum. That would not erase the headlines, but it would prove discipline and buy time. It would also strengthen the hand in any private talks, because leverage follows court victories. Either way, the next filings matter more than the next interview. If you're looking for signals, watch the docket, not the gossip. A surprise expert report, a tight supplemental brief, or a clean evidentiary chart can change the music faster than any statement on a live stream. Let's address a myth that a superstar is too big to fail in court. No one is too big for discovery. No one is too big for sanctions. Courts can and will penalize parties who miss deadlines, hide the ball, or play games with the rules. That's not drama, that's law. And when a judge starts hinting that patience is thin, the smartest move is to get boring fast, comply, clarify, and close the gaps. From a fan's perspective, it's okay to hold two ideas at once. You can enjoy the music and still want the legal process to be handled carefully and transparently. Art and accountability do not cancel each other out. They coexist when teams treat the court with respect. For the culture, the bigger takeaway is about how celebrities manage risk. Your favorite stars employ whole teams to avoid exactly this situation. When those safeguards fail, the repair work is tedious and technical, far from the glamorous clips you see on tour. If you're here for the real story, this is the real story. Law is logistics, not fireworks. As we track what happens next, watch for 3 signs of stabilization. 1. Filings that answer the judge directly, point by point, with citations instead of spin. 2. A controlled media posture, fewer side comments, more focus on the case record. 3. Outside partners quietly returning to the table once the court tone improves. If those things happen, momentum can shift back. If they don't, the gravitational pull toward settlement grows stronger by the day. Now, if you're just joining us, make sure you hit subscribe to Scandal News and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update. Drop your thoughts below. Should Drake push to clear the record in court, or take the business route and settle to move on? Keep it respectful. Real talk beats hot takes every time. Let's also think about the creative path forward. Artists who survive legal storms do it by doubling down on craft and discipline. They let the work speak while the lawyers do their job. They trim distractions, choose collaborators who bring stability, and plan releases that can breathe without controversy sucking up the oxygen. Even in chaos, a well-executed rollout can remind fans why they cared in the first place. And if a settlement happens, expect the messaging to be crisp. No admissions, mutual releases, and a line about focusing on the future. That script is common, because it works. Meanwhile, the court continues to be the only place that truly matters for the case itself. No matter what is said online, the judge will look at the record, not the rumors. That is the anchor in a news cycle that loves waves. As we close, a quick reminder. This coverage is news, analysis, and commentary based on publicly available information and filings. We will update as the record evolves, and we always distinguish between allegations and established facts. That's our promise to you, and now your call to action. If you value coverage that treats celebrity news like real news, support the channel. Subscribe to Scandal News, ring the bell, like the video, and share it with a friend who follows the industry. Comment with your take on the best strategy for Drake's team right now: win in court or win by moving on. Your voice shapes the conversation and will feature thoughtful comments in future reports. Stay sharp, stay kind, and stay tuned. Here's a deeper look at how a judge's questions can change the map. When a court probes the weakest link in a defense, lawyers have to decide whether to reinforce that link or reroute the argument entirely. Reinforcing means producing documents, witnesses, or expert testimony that directly fix the gap. Rerouting means conceding a small point to protect a bigger principle, like shifting from a broad denial to a narrower, more defensible position. Either move has trade-offs, and every trade-off leaves a paper trail that the other side will test. That's why timing is everything. You want to repair the roof before the rain becomes part of the record. Discovery is often where momentum is won or lost. Depositions are not TV drama. They are hours of careful, exhausting questions designed to lock in a timeline and expose contradictions. A single imprecise answer can open the door to follow-ups that reach into old emails, unreleased tracks, or private chats that were never meant for public eyes. The best prep looks boring. Timelines, binders, rehearsed clarity, and strict boundaries. Courts respect parties who treat the process with seriousness. On the PR side, the playbook focuses on 3 layers: audience, partners, and press. Audience, messaging is simple and values-based: respect for the process, gratitude for support, and focus on the work. Partner messaging is crisp and contractual reassurances about compliance, forward-looking plans, and risk management. Press messaging is factual and brief: one statement, no freelancing, and zero speculation. Any deviation creates noise that becomes a headline, and noise is the enemy when the judge is already skeptical. Financially, litigation burns cash in obvious and hidden ways. Obvious costs are legal fees, expert reports, and lost time. Hidden costs include paused campaigns, delayed releases, and quiet exits by partners who do not want to be the next paragraph in a lawsuit. Those hidden costs do not show up on a law firm invoice, but they shape strategy more than most people realize. Streaming loves consistency. Courts deliver uncertainty. If you sense a slowdown and surprise drops, that's not a coincidence. it's a calculation. One more point on precedent. Courts are not supposed to be swayed by celebrity, but they are guided by prior cases. When a pattern merges missed deadlines, incomplete production, or speculative claims, judges often cite previous rulings to justify tighter control. That's how skepticism becomes structure. More status conferences, firmer orders, and fewer second chances. For a defense team, the path back to confidence runs through compliance. Meet the deadlines, overproduce on discovery, and give the judge clean, organized submissions that make rulings easier, not harder. Fans sometimes ask why a star doesn't simply tell the truth and end it. In court, truth is evidence plus procedure. If a fact is not in the record the right way, it can be ignored. That's why lawyers talk about foundations, authentication, and admissibility. It's not just about what happened, it's about what the court can properly consider. That framework protects everyone, famous or not. As we evaluate Drake's next steps, watch for a pivot to expert voices. Experts translate technical issues into digestible conclusions for the court. And a credible expert can steady a wobbly defense. But experts are a double-edged sword. Their reports are picked apart line by line, and a weak foundation can make an expert look like a paid narrative rather than a neutral guide. This is where credibility returns as the central currency. If the defense sounds precise, consistent, and supported, the judge will notice. If not, expect more pointed questions and less patience. Touring plans may also bend around the docket. Subscribe for verified updates from Scandal News. Keep up